Good evening, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. It is just the most spectacularly perfect day in Portland, Oregon today. High 70s, sunny, the sky is unbelievably blue. So it's the end of the day and I'm out doing my normal evening chores. You can hear the chickens and ducks scratching. I've just fed them a snack before bed and I am picking the last round of produce. So whatever berries are going to go in the freezer that I missed earlier today, green beans, summer squash, tomatoes, that's on my list to pick this evening. So my husband has taken the dogs and the children up to visit my father 1 block away, and I have a little bit of time to myself, which is a rarity. Add to that the fact that I had an exceptionally good dinner from Nonina, where my neighbor and friend Gemma is the chef, and the food was just, it was delicious. A perfect summer dinner, steak and grilled vegetables, and I'm just really in a great place. So I thought I'll sit down and talk with you all for a few minutes while I have this break. I finished picking berries and I haven't yet moved into the tomatoes. So although I'm sitting in the middle of them, let's talk a little bit about permaculture and clutter, which may seem like an odd subject to talk about when I'm in a good mood, but I'm a little bit of a pack rat, and not a disorganized one, a highly organized and regimented pack rat. And I thought I'd talk about the tendency in our culture to fetishize and favor minimalism and kind of eschew the normal human tendency to collect things. Now in permaculture, we can use our ingrained desire to collect things that we think may be useful down the road, even if we don't yet have a purpose for them. We can harness that in permaculture to our advantage. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When you have 4 kids, a small house, a partner who's a bit of a clutter bug, and you yourself love to collect things and plan compulsively for the future, end up with a lot of stuff in your house. And you know, this Marie Kondoing your life and minimizing everything has become really elevated in our popular consciousness and has been set on a pedestal as some sort of aspirational goal where we are somehow better, more pure, better centered and connected to ourselves, and better able to live our lives if we get rid of stuff. Now, there is a point at which our stuff owns us, and I'm definitely not criticizing folks who want to reduce the amount of physical things in their life. We live in a consumer culture, which teaches us that the accumulation of unnecessary objects will make us happy. And we all know that deep down inside, we are not going to be filled up. We are not going to be contented by the fact that we purchase items. I think there's a big difference here between the message that stuff makes you happy, which is a lie that consumerism sells us in order to get us to buy new things every season, in order to keep us being compliant workers of the industrial machine so that we can afford to buy things every season. There's a huge difference between that and the message that planning for the future and realizing there is such a thing as scarcity and accumulating objects that have a potential use down the road can be really good planning. Much like the squirrel hoards its nuts for the winter, or many species of mammals make caches of food that they know will help them get through the winter. There's nothing wrong with planning ahead and storing up goods. The difference between what permaculture says and our consumer society says is that one says the accumulation of stuff will make us happy, which is an illusion. The other one says you can accumulate some stuff in order to be better prepared as a strategy to help build resilient systems. So for me, things like having a large woodshed and chopping and storing wood for the winter is smart planning and preparation. It is a justifiable, useful, and wise accumulation of resources. There are also some issues of clutter around. I have lots of hobbies. I tend to grab things at the thrift store that I think I may need in the future. My wood shed is full of wood, but my tool shed is also full of wood, but a different kind. It's full of lumber that I get free off Craigslist, or I get from friends who don't want it anymore, or I have leftover bits from other projects. So thinking about scarcity, when we are looking at a permaculture way to use our financial resources and the space that we have around us, we want to use resources wisely. We want to purchase things in a way that aligns with our values and is not exploitive of the planet. And unfortunately, that means sometimes we need to get things when they're free. We need to get things when they're on sale. We need to get things when they are available as ethically sourced. That means there may not be a constant supply stream for everything we have for future projects. For example, I'm trying to build this bike shed. I'm trying to build it almost exclusively out of free stuff. That means I have a list in my mind of supplies that I need, and I have to store them somewhere until I get the full cohort of ingredients for my shed, and then I can build it, right? Finish building it. It's partway built. Permaculture says slow, small solutions. And the reality is that if we are using our resources judiciously and ethically, if we are purchasing things when they become available for a reasonable price, when they are repurposed, reused, we may have to take time to slowly build up a stock in order to implement our plans. And that is okay. That is a justifiable kind of clutter. That is a wise kind of clutter. So when we live in a society that says, keep hardly anything around, because you know what? The things that you want, you can just go to the store and buy them if you don't have them. That is not a permaculture mindset. That's not a sustainable mindset. Saying that we don't have to keep very much in our homes because we can just run out and buy something assumes that the supply chain of ethically sourced and sustainable options for our projects, for our building resiliency in our homestead. Oh, a hawk just flew over, sorry. So if we are saying that we can keep very few objects in our homes or a tiny fridge and not have a larder, and we don't need to accumulate building resources because we can afford to just pay whatever the market price is and not worry about how it was sourced or whether it was ecologically impactful, that's a huge amount of privilege, and that's not in keeping with permaculture. So I would say it's actually really difficult to live a very minimalistic lifestyle and be truly sustainable, especially if you're looking to take designs that are flawed and inefficient and you are looking to improve them. You need resources. You can't always source them all on site. I live on a 1/4 acre in the city. I can't source my own lumber, but I can source my lumber for free if I'm slow and diligent and I use time as a resource to scan the free pages, scan Craigslist, build connections, and get free resources that I need. That means I have to store them up, right? So I would just encourage you, it's okay to have clutter. It's okay to think about the slow and steady progression toward the launching of a project. The steps leading up to the beginning of a project include accumulation of resources in a budget-friendly way, in a way that meets your values and ethics. And that is all right. It means you might have piles of wood in your backyard. It means you might have a basement full of pumpkins and cans of applesauce that you have put up to see you through the winter. It's okay to have clutter. It's okay to have ongoing projects. It's okay to not have your house looking like a magazine. It's okay to live a lifestyle that is not minimalistic. When I was 18 years old, I read a book called the Tightwad Gazette, which is actually a collection of all of the magazines Tightwad Gazette put into one big volume. That book was really transformative for me, and one of the things she talked about is how having a barn is a step toward resilience and self-sufficiency. Having a barn in which to store things, store your winter clothes, store resources for future projects, store feed for animals, store all kinds of things that you know you'll need in the future. And when I read that, that was really, really impactful for me, because at the time I thought the key is living in a tiny house, well, not tiny house by today's standards, but in a small house, and having very few possessions. And Amy Decision, the author of Tightwad Gazette, said actually the opposite is true. You can have a small house, but having a large storage space means that you can slowly accrue things as they come, are presented to you, when they are affordable and when they are available. Having 4 kids, I have found that principle incredibly, incredibly true. When I see things at the thrift store that are size 18 months that are on sale for $1/4, I would buy them even though my baby was only 6 months old, knowing that in a few months I would need them. I would plan ahead and buy ahead, and that requires storing. But it also helps you keep to a really tight budget, because it meant I could buy those overalls for my toddler a year in advance, instead of having to wait until my kid was outgrowing her clothes and I had to buy something at the market rate of $24 instead of 25 cents. So as I'm rambling here a little bit, I just want you all to think about the fact that your home can look however you need. I actually made a video recently on creativity and permaculture and how we have a need for artistic expression. Part of our need to express ourselves and also to build a resilient and sustainable way of living includes having clutter. Creative people make messes, creative people have clutter, but people who plan wisely for the future and live within their means also have clutter. You shouldn't feel any guilt about it. I don't feel guilt about it. You should look at my basement. It is full of storage tubs. You should look at my craft dressers and shelves where I buy thrift store yarn and thrift store fabric, thrift store everything. When I find it, if it's in my budget and I know that I might need it in the future, I buy it. And guess what? Once a year, I go through and I make a systematic purge of everything and say, actually, I think this isn't that useful to me. At the time I bought it for very little output of 50 cents or $1. I thought I might have a use for it, but now I realize I should pass it along to somebody else. That way I'm living within my budget, within my means, and I'm saving a tremendous amount of money. The clutter doesn't bother me because it feels purposeful, it feels productive, it feels like responsible planning. So if you're feeling guilt about your permaculture and how your future plans for building a more regenerative and resilient homestead are leading to clutter, are leading to the accumulation of things. If you're feeling like you go and visit your friends and they have a pantry that is basically empty because they eat out every night or they just buy whatever at the grocery store that week, and your kitchen shelves are full to the brim and you have jars of pickles and dried fruit and all kinds of things that you're preserving all over your counter and there's no space anywhere. If you're like me and you have winter squash stuffed under your bed in the winter, that is okay. That is a really sustainable way to be, and you do not need to feel guilt over that. And you need to look at that as a really advantageous way of living. Being a clutter bug, when it has purpose, when it is not about buying stuff to fill the void to make you happy, because that won't make you happy. When your clutter is about planning wisely for the future, when your clutter is about having a careful distribution of resources over a period of time, when your clutter is about making sure you can live within a budget, that clutter is purposeful and that clutter is meaningful, and that clutter can help contribute toward a life that is more sustainable. And when you live like this, you live in a way that is actually freeing you from the bonds of consumerism. It is saying, I function independently of the market and I plan ahead so that when something breaks, I don't have to purchase it at an overinflated market price. I purchase it when it's within my budget. And then when I have a space for it, or when something wears out, I have a replacement on my own terms. Clutter can be financial freedom, it can be empowerment, it can be resiliency. So don't feel guilty, feel empowered, feel that permaculture supports you in responsible accumulation and utilization of resources. So thanks for watching. If you got something out of this video, please click like and please consider subscribing. If you have thoughts on minimalism or clutter and how perhaps accumulation of resources can be an asset in permaculture, please feel free and leave that in the comment section. I love reading what y'all write. You can also check out my Patreon in the description if you're interested in supporting this channel on a monthly basis. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks.